Good morning. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee for Thursday, March 7th. My name is Jeremy Schrader, and I'm the chair of this committee. With me at the dais are Councilmember Ellison, Council President Bender, Councilmember Wright, Councilmember Goodman, and Councilmember Gordon. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. We've got 5 items on the agenda today, and we'll begin with the consent agenda, which is number 2 through 4. Item 2 is the referring to staff the subject matter of an ordinance, amending Title 20 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to the zoning code, authorizing the use of residential uses up to 3 units on properties with lower density zoning districts, and amending the standards related to building bulk, its lot size, required yards, setback, and other development standards. Item number 3 is the environmental assessment worksheet for the proposed Portland and Washington mixed-use development located at 500 and 530 South 3rd Street and 240 Portland Avenue. And number 4 is the setting of the public hearing for our next meeting on March 21st in order to consider 2 mayoral reappointments to the City Planning Commission. Are there any questions or comments from committee members on these items, or would anyone like to pull these off for a discussion? Not seeing anything, I will move items 2 through 4 for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We'll then move on to our quasi-judicial hearing, item number 1, which is the consideration of an appeal submitted by Jeff Eldred on behalf of Wall Companies regarding the Planning Commission's condition of approval number 7 to a site plan review approving a planned unit development at 445 Malcolm Avenue Southeast, 419 and through 405 through 504 29th Avenue Southeast, and 501 30th Avenue Southeast. And we'll begin with the staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So the project site is just north of the University of Minnesota Transitway and just west of Surly Brewing. And that 3-building plan unit development includes the rehab of the Harris Machinery Shop, the construction of 2 new buildings, one a 6-story mixed-use building, 33,000 square feet of retail, and then 145 units of market rate housing. And then just to the north of that is Building C, which is a proposed 6-story building, all affordable units with 142 units. Councilmember Schrader mentioned the land use applications, 6 in total. And I'll also note that there are 11 requests for alternative compliance. The staff recommended approval of all those, and the Planning Commission did approve, stayed with that recommendation for the applications and requests for alternative compliance. And as noted, the applicant did appeal one of the conditions, that being that Building C shall comply with the Minneapolis Guide to Exterior Materials in terms of percentage of exterior materials. In other words, not more than 30% maximum of fiber cement panels that are less than 5/8 inch thick, and that not having more than 3 exterior materials on one elevation. Here's Building C, the proposed affordable housing project, and highlighting those exterior materials and those percentages. It's the north, south, and east elevations that exceed that 30%, and 45%, 46%, and 67% respectively. The applicant accurately notes the intent of the Guide of Exterior Materials, exterior building walls and materials being for durability and compatibility. And in that hierarchy of exterior materials, brick and stone are allowed to be 100%, and that those are more durable materials than cement board siding, just as an example. Regarding compatibility, again, we feel that fiber cement is not as compatible with the neighboring historic fabric of this area and all throughout the city. We feel like the Lime apartment building at 29th and Lindale is a good example. This being built prior to the guidelines being implemented in 2014. That fiber cement siding, it provides, and that being the part in gray, metal panel is the orange, and we don't regulate color or advocating for the orange in other projects, but with this cement board siding, it can be flat, and then it also reduces the ability to it dictates where the windows are going to be, and so that adds to the flatness of a building when they're flush with that cement board siding. So there are dozens of projects each year that have been approved, that we've approved, that comply with the guidelines for exterior materials in the 5 years that the guidelines have been in place, including affordable housing projects. Just another image of the Lime building. We have Higher Ground on 12th Street, the Hook and Ladder affordable project in Northeast, and this showing the exterior materials proposed and what was approved. Easttown Apartments in downtown. And I'll also note that there have been 2 recent appeals that those appeals were denied when asking for an exceeding, when the applicant requested to exceed the maximum percentage of fiber cement panels, and that being 901 Winter Street and 510 West Lake Street. So in summary, this is an important and visible site. It's phase 1 of the Malcolm Yards development, so we really want to set the bar at just maintaining that minimum bar of what's allowed. We don't want to lower our standards for affordable housing projects on what they look like from the exterior. And we really don't want to open up this request to allow for deviation from these guidelines that we really feel have worked well in the past 5 years. And finally, this is part of a planned unit development, and part of the purpose of a planned unit development is to have those buildings be cohesive and work together. And by maintaining that minimum threshold, we really feel that gets to that goal.
Oh, thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Gordon?
I guess my question is, how often do we review this policy? You said this has been in place for 5 years, and it does seem like we're hearing about this issue more and more with more projects coming forward. And I remember the last time we denied one of these, there was a purported expert in front of us with lots of information saying that the way these are built now, things are changing. Do we have any plans? I'll just let folks know. I'm very much inclined to stick with our policy. If we have a policy, I don't like changing it, but I also want changing it on one-off projects, but I want to have a good policy. Are we in the process of reviewing and analyzing this, or when might we take another look at it to make sure that it's still consistent with what we were doing 5 years ago?
Thanks. I'm going to defer to my manager, Jason Wittenberg, on this.
Chair Schrader, Councilmember Gordon. This is an issue that's on our text amendment work plan. It's not high on the work plan at the moment, but it is something that's certainly on our radar. We did attempt to formulate an ordinance within the past couple of years that there was some disagreement about that, and that stalled essentially. It's a complicated issue with a lot of different opinions, and there are cost implications, of course, but it is something that we hope to bring forward within the next year or so, but it's not in the coming months.
Okay, I appreciate that, and that's my recollection, I think, from last time we talked about it too. I'll look forward to that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll open the hearing. I'll first give the applicant the opportunity to speak to the committee. Would the applicant or a representative like to speak? And if you could state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council members, good morning. My name is Jeff Ellard. I'm with the Wall Companies, 811 LaSalle Avenue, Suite 210 in Minneapolis. The Wall Companies, with our partner Loopy Development, have created more than 1,000 units of affordable housing in the city of Minneapolis. You can see our projects in many different neighborhoods, and we're proud of our efforts to produce that affordable housing in the city. We ask your consideration of our appeal of the condition related to the 5/8 inch, the percentage of product less than 5/8 inch cement fiber panel on our building. This building represents 142 units of 100% affordable housing at 30 to 80% AMI, using income averaging to generate an average income of 60% AMI or less. We believe we meet the spirit of the guideline with 3 materials. As shown on the elevation that's currently on your screen, we have some different colors on there, but we believe we meet the intent on that. We also have gone through an extensive process with Planning Commission, went to Committee of the Whole twice, redesigned this building to change how it looked and how it tied into the larger planned unit development. We are unaware of any studies that show a difference in durability or performance from a 3/8 to a 5/8 inch cement fiber panel. We don't believe that information is out there. Cement panel, fiber panel is an industry accepted standard building material with known durability, known performance that works in the urban setting. The difference in thickness of those panels can largely be attributed to transitions, building methods and types to allow for facades to match better. And I would argue that if you look at the elevations that you see on your screen, we have made a building that is interesting, that is not flat and monochromatic, similar to what you've seen on the other pieces there. If, building affordable housing is challenging, adding cost to it means you either have to find additional subsidy to try and meet that gap, or you have to remove some other amenity within inside the building to allow that to occur. We would ask your consideration that we provide a high interior level of finish, kitchens, cabinets, bathroom fixtures, all those things. We're providing balconies or Juliet balconies on many of these units. We believe those are better amenities to this building than adding the additional cost burden related to meeting the standard. With that, I guess I would close, and I'd take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodman.
Can you just tell us what is the additional cost?
Approximately $150,000 to $200,000.
Based on what?
Based on the difference in...
Yeah, per square foot? Give me
Yes.
how many square feet, how much more per square foot? I'm going to look it up, so.
Okay. I believe we have, if we got to 30%, we're talking of approximately 9,000 square feet of additional material at somewhere between $15 to $20 a square foot, going to either masonry or metal panel, is my quick take of it.
Counselor, if you're looking that up, I have some comments to make too, if there's none other from other council members. I was going to save this, but I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it. Like, I think that is an ongoing discussion we'd have. My preference, I think that's a discussion we should be having the discussion about materials should go through Planning Commission. I know that there's a lot of expertise that I think we'd be smart to use there. Also, affordable housing is near and dear to mine. I know a lot of other council members' heart that we need to be thinking about that in the city. So I very much understand the fact that when we put these requirements on, we are adding to the cost. But the issue is that is currently the ordinance. We may disagree on whether or not that should be it. But I'd like to see that budgeted for it, to come to city council and say, we aren't going to be able to do affordable housing because of ordinances that you knew about ahead of time. It is problematic, to be polite about it. So it is hard to hear that you're going to have to cut back on things you budgeted for, saying by not meeting the requirements that you knew about in advance.
Point taken.
May I?
Of course.
Carol Lansing, Faker Baker Daniels, working with the applicant. Just to clarify, the materials percentages are a guideline. They're not in ordinance. And just like sometimes comp plan guidelines need to be adapted to individual cases. And I did also want to clarify that there have been appeals on this issue that have been granted for affordable housing projects by this council recently. Thank you.
Do you have something?
Mr. Chair, I think I would feel more comfortable with a total ordinance change, not a case-by-case basis. That doesn't seem to make a ton of sense to me. I mean, some people do it, some people don't. So are the people who have the ability to appeal get a change, and those that don't? I mean, I think it's probably something that maybe should move up in the work plan. But I hate to hear, like, buildings that are affordable should look different and not as good as others. That's kind of part of the issue. So I would be more in favor of changing the ordinance overall than granting appeals on materials. Maybe we need to be more flexible about the materials, but then we should treat everybody the same.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to comment on the ordinance, I was the author of a proposed ordinance last term that by some measures would have reduced our overall standards for building materials citywide, and the former council president had a lot of concerns about how that would impact development in lower income parts of the city, including North Minneapolis, where she represented. And so we pulled back the ordinance because one trade-off of having a standard citywide, which I support, by the way, is that it makes it harder for us to do a case-by-case response to community concerns. And so we're kind of getting into policy here, but what we see now with the status quo using a guideline, in my experience on the Planning Commission last term, was that projects in wealthier parts of town get brick and glass and very expensive, very high quality materials, which are supported by the market and their rents. And buildings in my ward, in the 10th ward, get what you saw in that picture. That was before I took office. But and those types of buildings that are designed that way really, really impact our ability over time to support new apartment buildings in neighborhoods, because my constituents pass by that every day and they hate that thing. I mean, it has become a symbol of the kind of development that we don't want to see in Minneapolis. And so I think that there is an important value in making sure that there's consistency in materials across the city, and that we're not just supporting really high quality materials in the wealthiest neighborhoods and bad materials in lower income parts of the city. But how we define what's good and quality became a source of debate that we weren't able to reach consensus on last term. So that's the background of the status of the ordinance. And so I think Councilmember Schrader has taken this up. If others want to jump in and get involved, a lot of it had to do with how we're defining quality materials and what that standard looks like. And at the end, where we were landing last term, it was, at least in our own staff's estimation, sort of watering down the guidelines that we're using now. I wasn't comfortable with that. That wasn't my intention.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners,
Sure.
I would like to offer that as part of this project, it's a planned unit development. We're developing 3 buildings, and we also own more than 10 acres of land north of here that we're going to also develop. So to the side of, are we building a lesser product here? We need it to look good. We need it to be aesthetically pleasing. We need it to be high quality, because we're going to build a building north of it in our next phase that we're going to want to attract the highest quality tenants in there. So I would push back a little on the lack of quality or the lack of architectural interest, because we have every intent of building a high quality building because we want it to look good, because I have future stake in what happens after. So.
Thank you. I think just to add to that, I think we're also thinking 20, 30 years from now, how is that same standard of style? Bricks withheld the test of time, and it's hard to compete with that for a reason.
I agree.
All right, if there aren't any other comments, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll now open the hearing to the public, and we'll be keeping track. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and we'll be keeping track by the clock next to the clerk. Would any member of the public like to speak? And if so, state your name and address for the record. Anyone interested in speaking? Anyone? All right, seeing no one, the hearing is now closed. Councilmember Gordon?
Thank you very much. I think I'll just note that this is a project that my office has been very involved in, which certainly this area of the city has come up to our committee before, and this project itself, we're also going to be approving some zoning, hopefully, some zoning changes. So I'm very supportive of the project. I've been looking for ways that I can help, roles that I can play, kind of bridging the divide between the university and the property owners and those kinds of things. And there's lots that we've been working out here. So I'm incredibly sympathetic and want to be supportive. But my intention is to, in fact, I'll move to deny the appeal, because I also think we should be consistent with actions we just recently took. So I'll be curious to dig into the times we've granted these kinds of appeals, and I don't feel like I have the expertise to make these judgment calls to go against staff recommendation and planning commission recommendations for every project that comes forward wanting to use some kind of different materials. We actually, on the council here, we sometimes hear criticism from our constituents about the kind of buildings that are going in all over the city now. People are worried about it. They're worried about the quality. They're worried about how they look. And a lot of it has to do with kind of the new strange and modern kind of materials that are on the exterior. That's what they see, and that's what they think about. And they want us to be careful and to be thoughtful about it, and I think we have to be. So I'm going to push for us to come up with the best policy we can and the best ordinance. Not volunteering to join the work groups, mind you, but still very interested in what the experts and what we can bring back in the work plan. But won't be moving to support the appeal right now as much as part of me might want to.
All right, Councilmember Gordon's motion is before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Our final agenda item is number 5, which is the rezoning application that is a part of the same project discussed during our just completed quasi-judicial hearing. I will move for approval of this application. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Seeing no further business before the committee, we are adjourned. All right. Yeah, thank you.